Rh negative pregnancy. There are 4 blood types: A, B, AB and O. Presence of the protein Rh antigen on the surface of the red blood cells indicates the Rh factor. The Rh factor was discovered first by Landsteiner. A person who carries this protein is said to be Rh positive, and if he doesn't have it, he is said to be Rh negative. The system used to designate Rh antigen is the Fisher CDE system, of which D antigen is the most powerful Rh factor. Inheritance is autosomal dominant. 15% of Caucasian population are Rh negative. 5% of all pregnancies are Rh negative. Exposure of Rh negative people to even small amounts of Rh positive cells can result in the production of anti-D allo antibody, which is known as Rh sensitization or isoimmunization. So isoimmunization or alloimmunization is the production of immune antibodies in an individual in response to an antigen derived from another individual of the same species, provided the first one lacks the antigen. It occurs in 2 stages: sensitization and immunization. It may occur following transfusion of incompatible blood, which is very rare, or it may occur because of feto-maternal hemorrhage. This may result from spontaneous or induced abortion, ectopic pregnancy, antepartum hemorrhage due to abruptio placentae, manipulations like amniocentesis, chorionic villus sampling, external cephalic version, or any kind of abdominal trauma. Feto-maternal bleeding may also occur during the labor following manual removal of placenta in case of twin delivery or during cesarean section. So how does the mother develop Rh antibodies? So if ABO compatible Rh positive fetal red cells enters the mother's blood, they remain in the circulation for the rest of their lifespan. Thereafter, they are removed from the circulation by the reticuloendothelial tissues and broken down with the liberation of the Rh antigens. This Rh antigen then incites the formation of Rh antibody. Initially, there is formation of IgM antibody, also known as saline agglutinin. These are big molecules and they cannot pass the placental barrier. Now, any kind of feto-maternal bleeding in the subsequent pregnancies results in an anamnestic reaction which produces IgG antibodies, or otherwise known as albumin agglutinin. These are small molecules and can pass the placental barrier. Transfer of these IgG antibodies causes antibody-mediated destruction of the fetal red blood cells. Because of this, the first neonate is usually spared because it takes time for development of antibodies in the maternal circulation. However, subsequent Rh positive fetuses are usually affected, leading to hemolysis of the Rh positive cells of the fetus, which in turn may lead to conditions like hydrops fetalis, icterus gravis neonatalum, or congenital hemolytic anemia of the newborn. Fetal RBCs are detected in the maternal circulation in 6% in the first trimester, 15% in the second trimester, and 30% in the third trimester. The amount of fetal blood required to cause isoimmunization is as less as 0.1 ml. Antibodies once formed remain in the maternal blood lifelong. Without prophylaxis, the chance of sensitization in next pregnancy is 16%. Now, there are some women who do not respond to antigens, that is, even if they are exposed to Rh positive fetal red cells, they do not develop antibodies. So, these occur in cases of immunological non-responders. Then when there is coexisting ABO incompatibility, that is, the mother and the fetus do not have the same blood group. But this is significant when the mother is type O and the father is type A, B or AB. The reasons being the ABO incompatible fetal cells are cleared from the maternal circulation much more rapidly before they are trapped by the spleen. And also maternal anti-A or anti-B antibodies damage the Rh antigen so that it is no longer immunogenic. Also, if the sensitizing fetal blood volume is not sufficient enough, it may not incite production of antibodies. Now coming to the fetal effects in case of Rh isoimmunization. So in mild affection, we come across congenital hemolytic anemia in the newborn. So here anemia develops slowly in the first few weeks after delivery. Jaundice is not evident. Hemolysis continues for around 6 weeks, after which antibodies cease to exist. In case of moderate affection, the condition that develops in the newborn is icterus gravis neonatal. Here the baby is not jaundiced at birth, but it develops so within 24 hours of birth. The effect starts after cord clamping as excretion through placenta stops and because of premature liver enzymes. If the serum bilirubin level rises above 20 mg per deciliter, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, leading to the condition called kernicterus, where the basal ganglia is damaged. In severe affection, there is development of hydrops fetalis, where there is severe hemolysis, anemia leads to heart failure, there is compensatory placental hyperplasia, liver damage causing hypoproteinemia, there is development of edema, hydrothorax, ascites. The baby may be born still or may die soon after birth. And in ultrasonography, we come across a position of the fetus called Buddha fetus, which is because of the scalp edema giving the appearance of a halo around the scalp. Coming to the investigations in case of any Rh negative pregnant lady. So at the first antenatal visit, all women are screened for ABO Rh grouping. If she is Rh negative, then we go for determining the paternal blood group. If both the pregnant lady and her husband are Rh negative, there is no reason to worry about Rh incompatibility. The chance of having an Rh positive fetus from Rh positive father ranges from 50% if the father is heterozygous to 100% if the father is homozygous. If the father has Rh positive blood, then we go for indirect Coombs test in the mother using maternal blood, which detects incomplete IgG antibodies which can cross the placenta. This is done at the first visit itself and then repeated at 28 weeks using Coombs serum containing antiglobulin antibodies. Now, how do we manage a case of Rh negative unsensitized pregnancy? Unsensitized means she has not developed antibodies to Rh antigen. So as I have mentioned, we determine the blood group, Rh factor, and then we go for indirect Coombs test. This test helps us to assess whether antibody has been developed in her body or not. If indirect Coombs test, if it is positive, she has to be managed as a case of sensitized pregnancy. But if it is negative, then we go for antepartum prophylaxis with 300 micrograms of anti-D gamma globulin, which is injected intramuscularly at 28 weeks of pregnancy. RCOG recommends another additional dose at 34 weeks of pregnancy. Anti-D prophylaxis is also given if there is any sensitizing event such as amniocentesis or external cephalic version, chorionic villus sampling, or antepartum hemorrhage. For abortion of less than 12 weeks of pregnancy, the dose given is 50 micrograms. The mode, timing, and place of delivery in case of Rh negative unsensitized pregnancy is dependent on standard obstetric grounds. Following delivery, we go for early cord clamping, and the cord blood is sent for grouping and typing, direct Coombs test to detect antibodies in the fetus, then bilirubin level, hemoglobin level and hematocrit to detect hemolysis, anemia and jaundice. If the newborn is Rh negative, we do not need to worry, and if the baby is Rh positive and antibody screen is negative, then the mother has to be again given a dose of anti-D gamma globulin, which is again 300 micrograms, ideally injected within 72 hours of delivery. Now the usual dose is 300 micrograms, but ideally it should be determined by the extent of feto-maternal hemorrhage. If antibody screen is positive, the newborn has to be monitored for evidence of hemolysis, and all subsequent pregnancies are to be managed as sensitized pregnancy. Anti-D immunoglobulin is administered to neutralize the Rh positive blood which enters the maternal circulation. It causes antibody mediated immune suppression. Sensitization in subsequent pregnancy is reduced to 1.6% compared to 16% if it is not given. This 300 micrograms dose is sufficient to neutralize 15 ml of fetal RBC or 30 ml of fetal blood. However, large feto-maternal hemorrhage is suspected in cases of traumatic delivery, abruption, manual removal of placenta, stillbirth, multiple pregnancy and hydrops fetalis. A rosette test can be used to rule out significant feto-maternal hemorrhage. Higher doses required if the feto-maternal hemorrhage is large, which can be assessed by Kleher-Betke test or by flow cytometry. Kleher-Betke test is an acid elution test which detects fetal hemoglobin, which can help us to estimate the amount of fetal blood that has entered the maternal circulation. Next, we come to the management of a sensitized woman. Nowadays, we very hardly come across such a case because we always inject Rh negative women in the first pregnancy itself with anti-D immunoglobulin. However, if somehow we come across such a case, it should preferably be managed in centers which are equipped to tackle such cases. Pre-pregnancy counseling is very important because since the lady already has got antibodies against Rh antigens in her body, there is a high likelihood that the fetus may get affected. So in pre-pregnancy counseling, we can give the option of using Rh negative sperm donor or embryo biopsy if the husband is heterozygotic. We can go for non-invasive fetal genotyping using cell-free DNA, cell-free fetal DNA, using maternal blood for antigens D, C, small c, E, small e and K antigens. Or we may go for invasive testing like amniocentesis or chorionic villus sampling. Next, we are to assess the maternal serum antibody titer at regular intervals. This is a very important guide to disease severity. The critical titer of antibody is 1:16 to 1:32. Now, if indirect Coombs test is positive, as in any case of sensitized pregnancy, the titer is repeated monthly up to 28 weeks and thereafter every 2 weekly. If it is below the critical level, we can continue the pregnancy and deliver her at term. But if it crosses the critical level, we should try to assess the lung maturity and then consider delivery. We can use corticosteroids for bringing about lung maturity if the lungs are immature. If the antibody levels rise beyond the critical level, the baby should be examined for signs of anemia by going for weekly ultrasonography. If the anti-D level is less than 4 international units per ml, then the risk of hemolytic disease in the fetus and newborn is very minimal. If it is between 4 to 15, the risk is moderate, and if it is more than 15, then there is a high risk. Next, we may go for amniocentesis and spectrophotometric analysis of the amniotic fluid for bilirubin level. where we look for optical density of the amniotic fluid at a wavelength of 450 nanometer. This is done if the antibody titer is high or there is history of multiple isoimmunized pregnancy. The result which we get is plotted in Lilly's graph. So it may fall in 3 categories: Zone 1, Zone 2 or Zone 3. Zone 3 being the most severe. If it is Zone 1, we can continue the pregnancy till term. If it is in Zone 2, titer has to be repeated every 2 weeks. And if it is in Zone 3, we go for chordosynthesis and intrauterine transfusion. Now this is an invasive method which is no longer recommended, because nowadays we mainly rely on a better test, that is ultrasonography. So serial ultrasonography may help to reveal subcutaneous edema, ascites, pleural effusion, pericardial effusion, increased placental thickness, all of which are consistent with severe fetal anemia in an affected fetus. We go for Doppler study of the middle cerebral artery, fetal middle cerebral artery, and a rise in the middle cerebral artery peak systolic velocity suggests a high probability of fetal anemia. So this is the test which we go for in the present times. Then we go for chordosynthesis, where under ultrasonographic guidance we collect around 0.5 to 2 ml of fetal blood from the umbilical vein, and this is tested for fetal hematocrit and bilirubin. This procedure carries a risk of abortion, preterm labor and intrauterine fetal death. Then the next option is intrauterine fetal transfusion. The fetus can die in utero from severe anemia and hydrops. Intrauterine transfusion can prolong the life in utero of a fetus to a period of gestation where the risk of prematurity are estimated as being less than those of the Rh disease. It is based on the levels of fetal hematocrit, which is assured by chordosynthesis, then amniotic fluid optical density, which is assessed by amniocentesis, or middle cerebral artery peak systolic velocity, which is picked up by a Doppler study. So this is done by ultrasonography guided intraperitoneal or intravascular Rh negative blood transfusion. The blood that we transfuse should be fresh, that is less than 5 days old. It should be Rh negative packed cells with a hematocrit of 0.7 to 0.85, which is cross-matched with a maternal sample. This white cell depleted and irradiated and screened for infection including cytomegalovirus. The procedure is repeated as necessary according to the amniotic fluid optical density or fetal hematocrit. The IV route is becoming increasingly the preferred method. The referral to a fetal medicine specialist is indicated if there is rising antibody titer, or if the antibody titer level is more than 4 international units per ml. Ultrasonography is suggestive of fetal anemia, that is middle cerebral artery peak systolic velocity is above 1.5 multiples of median, or the past obstetric history is suggestive. In her past obstetric history, there is history of unexplained severe neonatal jaundice or neonatal anemia requiring transfusion. In determining the time of delivery, we need to balance the risk of prematurity with that of worsening Rh disease. The timing of delivery in sensitized mother depends on the antibody level or titer, then the rate of rise of titer, and history of any fetal therapy. The risk of vaginal delivery is considered, and cesarean section is usually preferred, where we need to avoid the spillage of blood into peritoneal cavity and also manual removal of placenta. It is usually done after 34 weeks of pregnancy. Pediatrician should be present at the time of delivery, and fresh Rh negative blood is kept available. Then for neonatal resuscitation, good resuscitation is required. Lung disease is quite common in an anemic and premature infant. This may be due to surfactant deficiency if the delivery occurs in a very preterm newborn. In pulmonary edema from anemia and hypoproteinemia, hypoplastic lungs secondary to pleural effusion. In severe hemolytic disease of the newborn, an umbilical artery catheter should ideally be inserted as soon as possible to assess and to control the oxygen saturation and pH level. Central venous pressure should be measured and pleural effusion and ascites should be drained. Then we need to regularly assess the neurobehavioral status and monitor the bilirubin level and the hemoglobin level of the newborn. The baby should not be discharged early. Early breastfeeding should be promoted. Then we may need to go for exchange transfusion. What are the indications for exchange transfusion? So early indication, here the decision is mainly based on the cord hemoglobin level. If there is a strongly positive Coombs test, the cord hemoglobin level is less than 10 grams per deciliter, or the cord bilirubin level is more than 5 milligram per deciliter, or the bilirubin level rises at the rate of 1 milligram per deciliter per hour. And indications for late exchange transfusion is usually hyperbilirubinemia. Now, exchange transfusion helps to treat anemia, wash out IgG antibodies, decrease the degree of hemolysis, remove bilirubin, and prevent kernicterus. The route usually chosen is the umbilical vein, and the baby is to be monitored for hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, and metabolic acidosis. We may also need to put the baby on phototherapy. Here we place the newborn baby under a halogen or fluorescent lamp with the eyes and genitalia covered. It helps to lower the bilirubin level in the baby's blood through photooxidation. During phototherapy, IV hydration is required. Phenobarbital is also often helpful.